Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Another Woman's Story. Tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about strength in survival, a message for every woman. My name is Cheryl Patton Dandridge. I'm the founder of Another Woman's Story, and our nonprofit is designed to assist survivors and those that are currently in a domestic violence situation with stories of survival, with support, with everything that you could possibly need in order to help you to get out of the situation. And so our tonight's podcast is going to be a little bit different. We actually had our guest speaker tonight that had other plans, and so she could not make it. And so I wanted to go ahead and talk to you all tonight, just because it's been a little bit, right? We've had a lot of things happen from the last time that we met. And last year we didn't do any podcasts at all. And everybody's asking, when are you guys going to come back online? When are we going to have some feedback, some guest speakers and things like that? So I just wanted to kind of catch you up to date with what we've been doing and let you know that every fourth Tuesday, we will be talking live with a guest or a specialist or somebody that can help assist us in displaying strength, those people that will exhibit resilience in their situation, those people that will be able to dispel some of the myths and the misconceptions about domestic violence. And so tonight, before I get started, if you would go ahead and share this page, put it on your pages. Those of you who are on Facebook, those of you who are on YouTube, if you would please subscribe. If you're on Instagram Live, go ahead and subscribe to us now. And so we can go ahead and spread the word. We can let others know that we are here, that we haven't gone anywhere. We've actually been doing some things internally. And last year in October, we had our first Women's Summit. It was an amazing day with women that wanted to share their stories. There were other women there that just for fellowship and fun, laughter. We had food. It was a wonderful event, and we're going to actually make that an annual event. So look forward to posts and information about the upcoming events. So tonight, what I'd like for you guys to do is, if you would, go ahead and type in the chat where you're from. If you want to give your name and where you're from, just kind of shout out your area so we can know if you're on YouTube or Instagram. Let us know how you found out about this podcast tonight. And so go ahead and get started. I've got a couple of things I want to share with you tonight. So I'm going to give you a moment to share. I just got a message from the producer that my camera is blurred. I don't know why. So we're going to, hopefully you can still see me. Can you guys see me? Go ahead and type that in the chat. Let me know if you can see me. If it might be a little blurred, and I don't know. Let me see if I can wipe this off. Give me 1 second. I don't know if that fixes it or not. Uh-oh, that made it worse. Okay, let's see. Uh-oh, I might have made it worse. Okay, give me a second. I think I made it worse, guys. Alexis, hello, welcome. Thank you for coming. She's in Seattle. Now I've got a blurry screen. Uh-oh. All right, so. Let's see if I can get some, can you get some, something for me? So I'm going to be blurred for just a little bit until we fix that. But again, if you could, hey, Andrea from Beaufort, Georgia, thank you so much for chiming in. If you guys can, again, let us know where you're from. Sorry, I just messed my screen up. So right there. Nope. You have to actually wipe this. That's what I get for, is this wet right here? Okay. I don't know. I'm going to be blurry tonight. So sorry about that. Hey, Trina, thanks for coming. We're going to try to fix this screen. So now I'm blurry. I messed that up. So in any case, I wanted to just go ahead and get started. Again, I just wanted to acknowledge that our episode tonight is going to be a little bit different. Our guest, unfortunately, had to cancel last minute, but I believe everything happens for a reason, right? So I'm still grateful that you guys are joining me today. It's about something that we connect to really deeply, which is our experiences and the power of vulnerability. So I wanted to, we're going to share a few things tonight. I really want you guys to be active as we talk about different things. And my camera is going to be blurred all night, I guess, because we can't fix that. Let me just see. Sorry, let me try one more time. Oh my goodness. I think I messed it up. Did I fix it? No. Okay. So just take me blurry. Just take me blurry. And so that's okay. So let me get back to my point. Tonight, again, this episode is really close to my heart. I wanted to share the power of shared experiences, because when you share your experiences, it actually brings about healing. And sometimes the most meaningful conversations aren't the ones that we plan. They're the ones that we don't plan. And so this is what this episode is actually about. I'm going to share some of my own thoughts, but I really would like to emphasize how much power there is in all of us sharing. So if you have anything that you want to share, if you have any questions, certainly tonight would be a great time. I really want to get your feedback as we move forward in 2025 to just find out how you need us to help you, right? And so if you can share some thoughts in terms of what you would like to happen, how you want us to help you, if there's something that we can do, if there's some topics that you want to talk about, hopefully we'll be able to alleviate some of those misconceptions. And certainly for people that have not been in a domestic violence situation, is much more difficult for them to understand how someone could be in that situation, why didn't they leave, and things like that. So I just wanted to, since we're here, go ahead and bring up question number 1. So if the producer, if you can post that really fast, let's talk about something really fast. What is one thing that you wish more people understood about domestic violence, even as either as a person that has been in that situation or a person that maybe has never been in a situation, but you know someone? Are there any questions that you have about domestic violence that you wish people understood, or is there something that you don't understand about domestic violence that you'd like to share? We're going to clean it with alcohol. We're going to try to find alcohol to clean the lens. Thank you. So that's a question that I wanted to find out, if there's something that you wish more people understood about domestic violence. One of the things that I like to share as a survivor is that domestic violence does not just start when you first start dating or when you first enter into a relationship with the other person. If that happened, most people would not date or continue to be in relationship with that person. So one of the myths that I'd like to share, that I'd like to dispel, is that domestic violence does not happen the first time you meet that person. Generally, and one of the reasons why the person does not leave, or they leave and they go back, is because it's kind of confusing, right? The person that you're dealing with is a person that you love. They're a person that you've shared time with, you've shared emotions with, you've shared circumstances and different things. And when they do something, whether it is to physically abuse you, whether they're doing something to demean you, whether they're doing something to pull certain privileges away that you've had, let's say finances and things like that, you're confused. So as a person in that situation, you're not sure how to process that, because this person is someone that you love. This is a person that you spent time with and you've shared different things with, and they do something like that. And so you kind of go, okay, they like me or they love me, but they hurt me, but they still say that they love me. And now they're saying that they're sorry. It just creates a dynamic that's very difficult to change. It's a difficult thing to comprehend. You're embarrassed, and it's hard for you to share that with friends, let's say, or family. And so it's almost like a private hell that you deal with while you're in that situation. And it's difficult to leave the situation if you don't feel like you have anywhere to go. And if you tell people and they don't necessarily understand, because that person, that perpetrator, is a person that everybody likes. So nobody would believe that this person is doing this to you, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to share in terms of misconceptions. And also that a lot of times when we think about abuse, we think about just physical, but it's not always physical. It can be emotional abuse, it can be financial abuse, it can be sexual abuse. There's different types of abuse. And so I think that if the abuse does not show up as physical, most people discount it as it wasn't no big deal, right? They discount it and say that's not really abuse. If your partner does things like stop talking to you because they're angry, and when you try to talk to them, they're stonewalling. They're not saying anything. They may talk to everybody else in the room but you. That's actually abuse. And people consider that to be, he's mad at me, that kind of thing. But you really need to take a look at those type of behaviors, because they do matter and they do mean something. And certainly if it's a pattern of behavior so that that person can get their way, that form of manipulation is something that you want to pay attention to. Okay. So that's another misconception. Do you guys have any questions so far about domestic abuse or anything as it relates to what you do not yet understand? Okay, cool. Thank you. This question says, how could someone help a person that she believes is in an abusive relationship? So one of the things that happens when a person is in an abusive relationship is that they don't always share that information. So the first thing that you might want to consider is really being gentle about coming into the knowledge of that information. And if they are willing to share that information, that may be the only time that they let you know that they're in that abusive relationship. They may not share that after that. If they're embarrassed, if they get a response from you that's like, why would you stay, girl? I would leave. If a lot of people have preconceived notions about what they would do if they were in that situation, and no abusive relationship is the same. No abusive situation is the same. No ramifications of leaving is the same. And so to help that person is really to try to be gentle with them, and first of all, let them know that they matter and that they can get out and that they will get out as long as they continue to move in the direction toward freedom. And that is different for different people. So sometimes one of the things that is very important is that they are able to, if you are helping that person, that you really have great follow through and great follow up, right? So if someone tells you they're in an abusive situation and you tell them you're going to call them tomorrow, really call them tomorrow. They are literally depending on you for their life. And so every little step of the way, it's important that you are their person to help navigate them through the process. The abuser sometimes lives in the home, most times lives in the home, and you don't want to let them know that you're on to them. And so you kind of have to play the game. It's a really fine line between helping that person get out and not letting the other person know that you're on to them. And so it's a delicate situation, but being gentle with the person that is in the abusive relationship and letting them know that they matter is probably the biggest, I can say for me, it was the biggest help for me, rather than, girl, I would go over there, I'll tell him all that. You that's not going to work, right? So to let that person know you can get out, I'm going to help you, you deserve better, and you're worth it. You are worth it. And you have to just keep, I know it feels like a redundant situation. You have to keep telling them that they are worth it because they've lost their worth. They've lost their way. When they're in it, they can't see. And so you literally have to be the eyes for them. But one of the things that we talk about with regard to an escape plan, we talk about making copies of all of their documents, their driver's license, their copies of their keys, copies of their birth certificates, if they have children, social security cards, all of those things, right? And it seems like something that you wouldn't necessarily think is important. But when it's time to leave, if you have to leave with nothing, those items you're going to need. You're going to need your driver's license. You're going to need, all of those things. So if they can make copies of those things and maybe put them in a safe deposit box or leave them at a friend's home, especially this set of keys, so that they can navigate after they leave. If they have to leave everything, if they have to leave with nothing but the clothes on their back. But make copies and gradually make copies. They can gradually pull things in the car, clothes and things like that if you're their safe person, and if you can keep those things at your home or keep them somewhere so that they can get them if they had to leave with nothing in their hands. So that's a great question. Thanks, guys. Okay, we have another comment here. Bravery is not uniformly expressed in every domestic incident. Listening and exiting the situation requires deep bravery sometimes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anytime a person leaves that situation, they are absolutely brave. No matter if they have children, if they just left there by themselves, it takes a lot to be able to walk away from something or someone that you consider to be your life partner or consider to be a friend or a family member, right? It's very difficult to leave. And so bravery is definitely something that is used when someone chooses to leave. Great questions, great feedback. So let's talk about some facts, right? Because people always want to know the statistics. And right now, according to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner violence within their lifetime. So you figure if there's 1 in 4 and 5 people, one of them has experienced it. The one that has experienced it may or may not be you, but the rest of those people have seen someone in a domestic violence situation, or they themselves have experienced it. And so those statistics are pretty dire right now. Abuse does not discriminate. It crosses every race, every gender, socioeconomic status. And thinking that abusing a person that's been abused and that they leave that situation, the idea that that is a safe time, it really is for a lot of women and men the most dangerous time of all, because once they leave the abuser, now the abuser has lost control and power, and they are very, very angry, and they escalate to the place that a lot of women who actually leave their situation are murdered after their situation. So it's not end all be all. Once you leave, then now you're safe and everything's fine. A lot of times when you leave, you're in more danger than when you stayed. And so to the person that asked about helping someone in an abusive situation, understand that they're not safe when they leave, even if they go to someone else's home, because their perpetrator or their partner knows where they work, knows where they live, knows their habits, knows where their kids go to school. All of those things have to actually be discontinued, and they have to start all the way over. And so they're not safe because their partner initially knows everywhere they're going to go, right? So he knows where they go to the bank. He knows, those kind of things. And so it's really important that as a person who's helping someone get out of that situation, understand that the journey really just begins when they leave. It doesn't it doesn't give them safety. Most of the abusers don't just stop once they leave. They continue to taunt them. They continue to call them. They continue to show up at their job and, threaten friends and family members. So it doesn't necessarily end because that person left. And so you have to be really, really careful. It's really important for the person that is not in the abusive situation to educate yourself about what that looks like. Okay? Because that is very important for the person that leaves, that they're in a space where communication has to be cut in a lot of times. They have to go underground sometimes. In my situation, I had to go underground. I went underground for 30 days. I couldn't call anybody. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't let them know where I was. I had to just stop all communication. But I was in more danger after I left than before. And so, and certainly if the person has left, like in my case, I left, I was away from my ex-husband for a year and a half. So I didn't anticipate after a year and a half that he was still going to do anything to me. In my case, I was safe, or I thought I was, and that wasn't the case. And so it's really important that you understand that for some people, just because they've left the situation, their abuser is still, in their mind tormented. They're mad that they left, that they can't believe, there's a whole lot going on mentally for the other person that may not be resolved just because that person left. Any questions so far? You guys are doing really good. I'm going to keep on. And let's talk a little bit about, we talked about that abuse is not just physical, it's emotional. It's financial, especially if you are in a marriage and your husband decides that he doesn't want you to work anymore. Now there's a problem if he starts to do manipulation, if he starts to gaslight and things like that. Does anyone know? Can you chime in the chat if you know what gaslighting is, or if you need to know what gaslighting is? Anybody want to chime in on that? Let's talk about gaslighting. And that happens in relationships, not necessarily marriages, but it happens a lot. And gaslighting basically is someone just acting as if what you said, sometimes you didn't say. They divert the answer to the question and flip it so that you feel like you're the one that's been asked the question. So it's really a form of manipulation. It can be detrimental in a relationship that's long-term because you start to second guess yourself, right? So one of the things that I believe that God gave women is a spirit of intuition. We have discernment, and we can tell and feel when things are not right. And I think that over time, if you continually deal with anyone, whether it be your husband or work partner or anyone, and you continue to second guess what you know to be real and true, you start to be confused and you start to dim your own light because you can't really figure out, did I see that? Did I just see what I saw? And in actuality, you did actually see what you saw, but you've allowed yourself to believe the person who told you that you didn't see what you saw. And so one of the things that we try to encourage is to understand that, yes, you saw what you saw. You felt what you felt, and you heard what you heard. Don't discount that and don't second guess that because someone's telling you it's not true, because you know exactly what's true and what's not true, and you can feel it. So Simone is saying gaslighting is when people play as they are the victim and manipulate you into thinking that you are the aggressor when it's the other way around. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Sydney said manipulating someone to believe something that both parties know is not true. That's also true. Good things. Gaslighting is when the person you're talking to makes you think that you didn't hear what you heard. That's exactly right. And that's what we talked about. You heard what you heard, you saw what you saw. Don't allow yourself to continually be dumbed down or made to feel like you didn't see what you saw. Good. And Andrea says gaslighting is a form of mental abuse. The person questions their perception of reality. Imagine someone continually telling you, for example, they're continually telling me right now that they can see me clearly on the screen. It's like, how can you see? I'm looking at this and it's blurry, but I'm telling you guys, it's clear. This is clear, guys. And it's just not it's not the way to continually be in conversation or in relationship with someone. And it's hard to fathom that a person that you're with, that loves you, that cares about you, would try to trick you or would try to manipulate you. But generally, a person who is an abuser is about power and control. And so whatever that looks like to them. Power and control can mean you're getting ready to leave the house and they accidentally drop a gallon of water on the carpet right before you leave. Now, no other time, right, would this gallon of water be dropped on the floor, but somehow every time you get ready to leave, there's something that's broken, there's something that this person accidentally falls, things like those are forms of manipulation. And over time, they create toxic relationships. They create toxic interactions. And as a woman, a lot of times we feel guilty for leaving that person to clean up their own mess, if you will. Or if you leave them to clean up their own mess and you come back home, now they're mad. Now you got to deal with a whole nother set of issues, right? So gaslighting is also something that, as Valerie is saying, make you see something and then says it's not what you saw. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that is a form of abuse. Even though it's not physical, it's a form of mental abuse. And it can take its toll on you year after year after year if you continually deal with that. Good stuff, guys. All right, so I have something else I want to talk about. Wanted to ask you about breaking the myths. When we're breaking the myths of domestic violence, there are several things. Let's talk about just a couple of 3 myths in particular. One of them is, if it was really that bad, she would have left. Another one is, domestic violence only happens to certain people. And then the last one, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, once you leave, the danger is over. And so if it was really that bad, she would have left. That is actually one of the myths of domestic violence that people don't seem to understand, because it is really that bad. She can't leave for various reasons. Maybe there's nowhere for her to go. Maybe there are family members that would chastise her for being in that situation. Perhaps she's embarrassed and not sure how she will navigate without that person, especially if they're financially in control. Maybe she has children and she can't manage them on her own financially. Sometimes it's because the person that she's leaving is very well liked and nobody believes her when she tries to tell them that she's in that situation. Right? She's dealing with a person that is socially, they are socially liked. They are able to navigate in crowds with people and strangers, and they're friendly and all of those kind of things. They're active at the church. They have a high position in authority. Excuse me. A lot of times, especially with women who are dealing with men in positions of authority, like police officers, like even pastors, people in high places politically or socially, it's very, very, very difficult for them to leave. because nobody listens when you tell them this is what's going on, or you've created this image and it's hard to come up from under that to say this really is not what it is, right? So just because a situation is bad doesn't necessarily mean that a person will leave. Myth number 2, domestic violence only happens to certain people. I'm hoping that in this group that we all know that that's not true, right? There are celebrities who've experienced abuse. Rihanna, for example, with Chris Brown, Oprah Winfrey. There are people in, great standing in communities that have experienced abuse. Valerie saying many times the family makes it seem like it's the person's fault. Exactly. Especially if the person that is abusing is very well liked in the family. Everybody thinks this person is wonderful. They're a caretaker. They're making a good money. They have great personality. Well, they always do when they're shining in front of a crowd. It's not when the crowd is there, it's when the crowd leaves. And so again, when you notice that the person that is being abused, and we have to pay attention to our friends, especially those that are in relationships that are, they seem to be where the man is just super wonderful. Take a look at your friend and pay attention. Can that person go and be away from their spouse or their mate for any length of time? Or does he always check in? He's always checking to see where she is. They share the same phone, all of that kind of stuff. Really pay attention. And, you'll be able to, if you're really paying attention, if your friend is showing signs of a personality change, they used to be really happy and now they're pretty stoic, and you can't figure out, why are you acting like this? This guy is so wonderful to you. You just standing there. Really pay attention to that, because it's often a sign of abuse. There's some things going on that they are not willing to share. They're too embarrassed to share, but really pay attention to that. The third myth is once you leave, the danger is over. We talked about that. Again, it's not over when they leave. And so it's very important that the people that they communicate with following the divorce or the separation, that those people are really understanding that this is a dangerous time for her. Sometimes the shelters aren't available, right? I know here in Georgia, the shelters are always full. And sometimes when you call the police officers, they're not always equipped to deal with domestic violence situations. So if the cop comes to the house and he's trying to ask you questions and your abuser is standing right there, 9 times out of 10, your thought is, I don't want him to go to jail. So you're going to say, yeah, everything's fine. You know what I mean? So it's really important that we get the training as lay people, as friends, as family members, that we get the training and we get the understanding about the myths of domestic violence. And then for me as an organization, my role is dual role. I want to be able to express that information to you all, as well as to work with the civic authorities and try to get them the training that they need so that they understand how to deal with someone in a domestic violence situation. So let's bring up question number 2. If you're a survivor, what's one moment where you realized your strength? And if you're not a survivor, if you know someone who was a survivor or is a survivor, what is one moment that you know where they realized their strength? Let's talk about that. For me, I realized my strength when I didn't care if anybody knew once I left. I think prior to leaving my situation, I was concerned about what other people thought. I was concerned about what they would think about me leaving. And so I think for me, the strength came when I realized that it didn't matter because I was the only one who knew my situation. And so other people had the thoughts that they had about it because they weren't in it. And because I knew the truth, the rest of the stuff didn't matter. It took a while for me to get to that place. But once I got to that place, I think that that was my strength. So, question here. Thank you. Is it true that the abuser will turn on the people helping the abused person? It may keep people from helping. So, Valerie, that question is layered. It is true in some cases that the abuser will turn on the people, but turning on them, what does that look like? It could vary from situation to situation, right? For some people, they will end the friendship. For some people, they may take it a little further and try to do something. I will say that in my experience, most men who are abusers will not buck up against another man when he steps to him. He will possibly say something to a woman that's trying to help, but 9 times out of 10, he does not say anything to another man that's trying to help. So to your point, it would depend on the situation. You can't guarantee that the abuser will not turn on that person. But like I said, a lot of times, in the case of a woman and a man is the abuser, if there's another man that steps to him, he generally will back down. Okay, question. This says, I had a friend who realized their strength once they knew that they had the support to leave and they knew they were in safe hands. Absolutely. Because one of the things that a person who is in an abusive situation has it's a weakness and a strength at the same time, is that they have consistency. And so the unknown creates the anxiety, which makes them sometimes not leave. So if in other words, they function in the dysfunction because that's consistent, right? And so I think we talked earlier, and I was telling Valerie that as the person that's helping that person, you have to continually say, I'm here for you. You are worth it. You are worth it. And you have to repeat that because what they're dealing with is the repetition of dysfunction. And so, as a friend, as a person that's helping them get out, you want to repeat something that they can heal from. And that is a repetitive thing. And so, yes, once the person that is in the situation finds out that they can be safe, they will leave. But that safety has to be consistent. And once the safety is consistent, they will be able to not only leave that situation, but they'll be able to thrive. It's very important that the person is consistent, that their support system is consistent and not judgmental, right? Non-judgmental, because there's so many things that a person in a situation will continually do. That's what they know. And they have to unlearn those things. It comes from a place of sometimes childhood trauma. It could be a missing father. It could be an abusive father. It could be, so many different things. And this man has come into their life. He has turned her life around, right? And so she leans and depends on him. So if that is an abusive situation, we have to reverse that by being helpful, by being supportive. I know a survivor, she realized her strength when she finally decided she had enough, learned her value, and moved out of the home with her kids. Exactly. Exactly. And listen, even if a person is ready to leave, a lot of times they go back. It takes a few times before they actually decide they have had enough. So even helping someone get out of the situation, unfortunately, it's not guaranteed that they will stay out of the situation. And a lot of times, if they have children, that can kind of compound the issue because the children are asking for their dad. You got holidays coming. You've got birthdays, things like that, things that you've celebrated together. And so it's very difficult to navigate that time when you have children asking for their dad, right? How do you manage that? So it becomes an intentional journey. It's an intentional journey to tell yourself, I'm worth it. This is not the way it's supposed to go. For me, I had to say, I know that I don't want their kid. What my trap was I didn't want my kids to be without their dad or to not have a father. That was what I would say to myself. And I finally said it to someone else. She was like, why don't you leave? And I said, I don't want my kids to not have their father. And she said, they will always have their father. You don't have to be his wife. And I think for me, that was the aha moment, right? Because I finally realized they would never be without their dad. I wasn't going to keep them from their dad, but a good father doesn't necessarily make a good husband. And for me, it wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And so I think it freed me up in that moment to say, okay, I can still do this. And so, yes, to your point, when you realize that you've decided that you've had enough, that's when they decide to leave. And so understand that there may be a person that you're helping, or you may yourself be in a situation and you want to leave and you try to leave, but you go back. It's not until you realize I'm worth the peace, I'm worth the healing, I'm worth having a life where I don't have to question and wonder and be on edge all the time. It's when you finally decide that I'm worth that you go ahead and leave, and you don't look back, and you do whatever it takes to stay gone, and you do the work to get healed. So good stuff, guys. Good stuff. How you guys doing? You doing okay? I wish I could hear you go, yeah, we're doing great. All right, so let's talk about the road to healing, what that looks like, right? Healing from a survivor's point of view, because survivors often struggle with the guilt or the shame or the self-doubt even after they leave, right? They know they've done the right thing. They feel guilty for breaking up the relationship or breaking up the marriage or breaking up the family, right? If they have children. And so some of the ways that they can heal would be to go and get therapy, support groups. There are a lot of groups out here that are available for people who have issues, for people who just need to hear someone else's story. Also to just set boundaries, because part of being in an abusive situation, when you come out of that situation because of that guilt or because of that shame, even with your children, sometimes you feel guilty for taking them away from their dad. You have to set boundaries, right? So that you don't always say yes to everything because you feel bad that their father's not there. You have to be able to set boundaries to new people in your life who may take advantage of the fact that you're still a little unsure, and they want to use you for different reasons. So you have to be able to get the help that you need. Certainly create new friendships sometimes if you have to leave the place of residence where you were, or pick up and move on to a different job or different home, things like that. You definitely have to be intentional about your new friendships going forward. And then reclaiming your confidence, right? Financial independence and self-love. Those things definitely help you on your journey as you heal from domestic violence. All right, so that brings us to question number 3. I think it's question number 3. What are some things that you think is the biggest, or what are some things that you think about as it relates to domestic violence? What are the biggest misconceptions? Or do you have any things that you thought were true about domestic violence that you no longer think are true, or some things that you have questions about? Let's talk about that. And then as you're talking about that, I really want to find out from any survivors, what self-care tips that you had, or the people that you know, if you know people that have been in abusive situations, what are the tips that they used in terms of loving themselves back, right? Loving themselves back into a healing place. I know for me, it was really important to, the first thing that I said was to trust my intuition. I think that was the first thing right off the bat, was to trust my intuition. And that has been a lifelong journey. When I feel certain things about people, I don't always have to express it. I just have to know that this is right. How I'm feeling is correct, and move out of that situation. So that has been it's going to be a lifelong journey. All right. So somebody's saying the biggest misconception is that people can just leave. It's easier said than done. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And that is so much needed to be understood, especially by people who are not in the situation, that people can't just leave. There's so many layers to that situation. And so being an understanding friend, of a person that tells you about that, you really just know that it's a process. It's a process. Good stuff. I would say one misconception is you must hate your abuser, but it's not that simple. That's also true. So trying to convince someone that's been in a love relationship with someone that they should hate them because of what they've done. We talked about this a little earlier, how it's a dual situation. You love them because you're in relationship with them, obviously, and then you're confused because they've done something to hurt you or to harm you, and you can't understand it. And yes, the process is much more complicated than that. Much more complicated than that. Another misconception is that the abused victim is weak. That's now that is really true. Abuse victims are not weak. And they are probably stronger than you know. And that's evident once they finally figure out that they are worth the leave. You will find how strong they are. And they will be able to shout it from the mountaintops. And they don't care about what anybody thinks. And they don't have a problem with you disagreeing with them going forward, because they know if they could get out of that situation, they can manage a whole lot of stuff. So it's really important to understand that we have so many misconceptions. And I really wish that the people that maybe you haven't been in a situation where you've been abused, that you would ask the questions rather than pass the judgment, right? Because you can look any kind of way and be in an abusive relationship. I remember reading about Halle Berry, one of the famous actresses. I know you all know who she is. And she talked about being in an abusive relationship where the person actually hit her in her ear. And so she's deaf in one of her ears, about 70% deaf. She's lost her hearing based on that relationship. And so you would never know. We don't look like what we've been through, right? We're still thriving and striving and trying to accomplish different things and being successful at it. And we can still have a great personality. It doesn't mean that you have to be mean and bitter. You can still grow and be happy and have joy. And it's an experience, right? So if you've been through domestic violence, if you've experienced it in any form, know that you can move on from that. Know that you can still love someone and be loved after that. Your life is not over. It's a situation and maybe a line in the sand, but it doesn't have to be a hard line in the sand. You can move on from that and share your story so others can come through that, right? The first time you tell your story, it's a little embarrassing. It still feels some kind of way when I share my story. But as time goes on, it gets better. And I recognize from the feedback whenever I share or whenever I create the platform like we have tonight to share our experiences and things like that, people are healed and they have a little more knowledge about the situation, or they have a little more support to understand that they can make it through, right? And so these platforms are important, whether you can see me or not. These platforms are important because they create the space for us to ask questions. And it's really, if you guys have questions, if you want to share, or you want to talk about this more, or there's certain things that you want to talk about, I really, really would like for you to offer that feedback, because it's important for me to give you what you need, so that you can help someone else in need. You know, I can only reach the people that I come in contact with, but each one of you has a sphere of influence in the groups that you manage and the groups that you interact with. And so it's really important that if you have that information, you can pass it forward to someone else, or you can be that person that you will have the source and the resources that you need to be able to share that information. And so it's really good to be able to have a place like this where we can talk about it. Okay, abuse comes in all forms and from all types of relationships. Pour into people who may need help. Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of it comes from watching, knowing your friends, being in close proximity to them, and just observing them. A lot of times we have to really take the time and be intentional to ask the questions, right? And you can tell that there's a shift in your friendships. You can tell that there's a shift in one of your friends. They're different than how they used to be, and they're in a new relationship, or they're in the same relationship, but they're just different. Something has happened. And I guarantee you, because a lot of times, and we talked about this before in another podcast, you can ask someone how they're doing and they're saying, I'm fine, and you kind of walk on by. But I guarantee you, if you go back to that same person and you say, no, how are you really doing? They will share in a different way. They'll share what's happening with them in a different way. And they will feel the fact that you actually care about them, that you love them, and you're asking them because you really are concerned. I guarantee you that they'll give you a different story. And it's not when you ask them in front of a bunch of people, right? Pull them to the side. If you see something different in your friend, pull them to the side and just ask them, how's that going? How are you doing? And I guarantee you'll get a different answer. And even if they don't tell you the truth in that moment, you will be able to read them and understand that either they're not comfortable saying it, they're not ready to share that, but you can tell that there is something going on. And that gives you the okay to keep watching them and keep letting them know that whatever it is, that you're there for them. Next question, or next comment. Some signs are subtle and start off small. That's absolutely correct. Excuse me. So one of the things that people have a misconception about, and this goes back to the myths, is that a person starts off in a relationship slapping you. That doesn't happen, right? Because if you were in a relationship with someone who slapped you on the first date, would you continue to date that person? No. So those signs are subtle. There'll be things like, I really like it when you wear yellow. I really prefer that you wear your hair straight, not that curly stuff that you wear. And you start, because you're in a new relationship, or because you're in a relationship and you want to please that person, you start to make those subtle changes. And what you start to recognize, and you're not paying attention, but as you grow and grow in that relationship, you recognize that these are things that the other person likes. I don't really like these things at all, but they like this, so I want to make them happy. Those kind of things you have to be aware of, even though they start off small. So we have to be really intentional about our interaction with another person. When you start to feel like you're not being yourself anymore, you really want to start paying attention to that. Put a pin in that. Check that level of relation that you're in. Check and make sure that you're really not sliding into a place where you're being controlled. Right? Because at the end of the day, you want to be who you are and be free to move around and do what you want to do and have your friends and, still be in a relationship. It should not be something that has you stifled and scared and always worried about the person saying something to you when you get back home or when you talk to them the next time. It shouldn't be something like that. So we're going to work on this year in 2025. First of all, Another Woman's Story is going to work on doing things in the community to express more forums like this, because I think it's necessary. I think that it's something that we like to have more open conversations. And I really want to be able to communicate with you all in a way that you're able to get some real gems to keep you abreast of what's going on, whether it be statistics or whether it be new trends and things happening. I really want to be able to express those things to you. But we have Another Woman's Story has different things coming up. We have our now annual summit coming up. It will be in October this year. And so I would like for you all, if you haven't already become a friend to us, I would like for you to please follow us either on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. Subscribe to us, Instagram, to make sure that you're following us so we can kind of give you some of the events that we'll be doing this year. We also do what's called a shop and share. And we bring newly used clothing to the same room. We have the ladies all bring newly used clothing. They get the opportunity to model those clothing if they like it. And the rest of the clothes that we do not swap out with each other, we give to the domestic violence locations here in Gwinnett County. So we are actively participating in events in the community. And so again, if you would please follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, be a friend, and certainly reach out. If you are currently in a situation, if you have any trepidation about sharing here in this platform, but you do need to talk to someone, I do want to give you the number to our hotline, the hotline, which is a national hotline for domestic violence. The number is 1-800-799-SAFE. That number is available for use 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is a live person that can help you navigate through your situation in whatever state, city, or county that you live in. They can give you the resources that you need, and you can certainly lean on them to give you help if it's an immediate need for you. Our Facebook website is all things Another Woman's Story. So if it's our Facebook page is Another Woman's Story. If you're looking for our YouTube, you can look for our YouTube at Another Woman's Story. Also, our Instagram is at Another Woman's Story. Our website is anotherwomanstory.com. And certainly, if you have any questions, you can feel free to go to our website. Go ahead and click in the email options there. Send your questions. Anytime you want to reach out to me, you can certainly do that at any time. I look forward to emails at anotherwomanstory@gmail.com. And anything that you guys have need of, please let us know. We are here to help. We are here to share. And we are here to help one woman at a time. We're going to save a life one woman at a time. That being said, I would like to thank you all tonight again for coming. Thank you for your time. Sorry for the blurriness, but we'll fix that and have it ready for the next time. But as always, if there's anything that we can do for you, please reach out and let us know. And that being said, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye-bye, everybody.